Hello and welcome to Fix It, the podcast by Fix Media, where we unpack media insights, strategy, and innovation. I'm Veronica Snoj, and I'll be your host today. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and Spotify. What news are children actually interested in? And what practices from children's news media could other outlets make work for their own audiences? We are talking about that and more today with Sonja Merljak Zdovc, editor-in-chief of Časoris, an award-winning Slovenian news site created specifically for children. Sonja, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
So let's dive right in. What kind of news are relevant for children?
I would say that pretty much the same situation as it's true for adults. It's true also for children. So the news is supposed to be a mixture of what they are interested in and what they should know. And this is also how we choose the content for our newspaper.
And what topics or stories tend to get the most response from young readers?
Unfortunately, we have to say that we don't get much response. The comment section we have is not really utilized. We also don't have the ability to curate or moderate it, so we are happy actually that we are not getting comments. What we do is we enter schools. We have workshops in schools with children and teachers, also with general public, with parents, grandparents. And we discuss with them what they think of Časoris. And we also have a special section dedicated to youth voices. So we can get idea from what they are interested in based on what they contribute. So we could definitely say mental health, environmental topics are very important. And we have also a special group of kid reporters, teen reporters, and we meet monthly with them and we discuss what they're interested in. So basically we have this mixture of feedback from our young audiences. But nevertheless, we usually publish what is happening. So we publish one article a day. But if you follow us for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, for example, you get pretty much everything you need to know. In addition to what I said, we definitely know the science stories are most popular, especially anything animal related is very popular. And when we do the yearly analysis of what got read, what was read, we can see the news and science sections are the most read sections.
It's interesting that it seems that you interact and get feedback from the audience, which doesn't really imagine the world without the internet, mostly offline. And
well, actually, yes. I mean, we could say offline, but it's actually on Teams meetings because we interact with children from all over Slovenia on these Teams meetings. So we are not really meeting them offline in real world. But yes, we are not interacting with them so much on TikTok, let's say.
And Časoris was launched more than a decade ago. And in these years, have you noticed any shifts in what interests younger generations and how they consume news?
No, actually, I think because what we are doing is we are entering in the schools with the help of teachers who are our ambassadors. So basically, we can only see that, it's getting more and more popular and more teachers are aware of it and find it a useful tool. But with children, we can only see that there is always let's say 10% of children who are interested in news and maybe let's say 5% or 3% of children who are actually willing to write news themselves. And that is a stable thing. It's not a variable, let's say.
Časoris started as a website, and now it's also an app, and you have accounts on various social media platforms. But what platform, apart from what you mentioned, schools and so on, where do children follow you the most?
Well, definitely the most is on the website because, again, we are targeting children age 6 to 12 mainly, also 6 to 15, which is the age of the primary school children in Slovenia. Based on the feedback through conversations and surveys, we also know that children in high schools also read us, even some adults. But we are targeting mainly the primary school children with the help of their teachers. I mean, we know that 6 to 9 year old children, they're not really so skillful in reading. So the idea is that the teachers read the article of the day, or maybe once a week or twice a week. Maybe some parents also kind of introduce their children to Časoris and help them through Časoris understand what is going on in the world. And hopefully 9 to 12 year olds, they would read it on their own. But it's still the basics is in the school system. So for example, in the mornings, or during Slovenian language or some other courses, subjects, the teachers would read the article and they will discuss it in the classroom, or maybe they will give the article as a homework or something like that. So the main interaction is happening within the school or through the parents who are themselves users of news media and think that news media is relevant to the education of their children.
And you argued that media outlets should integrate young audiences into their longer term strategies. Do you think that these outlets should also consider launching editions for children?
I mean, I'm arguing basically that if the adults newspaper want to keep their audience, they have to do something. Because, for example, I was growing up watching my father reading the newspaper, so the physical newspaper. My children are growing up seeing me on the phone, and they don't know what I'm doing with the phone, whether I'm playing a game or reading a newspaper. They also don't get to see newspapers or the media as a concept in school. I mean, in Slovenia, out of 140 schools, we have around 100 that they have this extracurricular activity related to the media. But that is still not that much and not so many children. Again, 10 to 12 children tend to enroll in such extracurricular activities if they are not really organized by the school as then obligatory, because then they have a little bit more, maybe up to 20, let's say. But even the really well-known adult newspapers like Financial Times have difficulties reaching users, readers that are younger than, let's say, 46 years of age. So these children who are growing up in the age of TikTok, they get their information on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram Reels. They will not just magically move to the newspapers or legacy media or something like that. They have to develop this habit of recognizing trustworthy information. They have to learn to read and consume news media like they have to read books. They will not start by themselves. Some of them will, but not most of them. So we have to somehow reach out to them. So the legacy media, the big newspapers, news media, who think that they want to cultivate their audience, they have to do something about how to reach young children. And not only those who maybe they are already reaching, let's say, after high school, like students, because the development of attention towards books and newspapers is most present actually at the age, let's say, up to 12, and then because of peer pressure and other important things that are happening in children's and teens life, their attention goes elsewhere, and they need to develop this habit earlier. At the age of 18, it will be much more difficult, because the habits are already established. Even though you try, you're probably successful to a certain extent. But if you really want to do something about like resetting our how would you say our attitude towards the news media, we have to start much earlier. It is either they develop their own content, because, for example, children who are curious, these children up to age 12 years, they're really naturally curious, and they are, I don't know, seeing with their grandparents that they're reading the newspaper, and they also want to find some content for themselves, and this intergenerational connection is very important. And I have heard, I don't have research, but I have heard that with some families, it was really important that while the parents, grandparents were reading newspaper, the children found something for themselves, But if this is not possible for all the news media, maybe they should reach out to children's news, because there are in many countries now children news media, and they can collaborate to a certain extent.
And what can adult, like media that is focused on an adult audience, learn from outlets like Časoris, like an outlet targeting a younger audience?
Yeah, well, this is a very good, important question, but also a difficult one. I mean, I would say that they could learn how to engage with the audience. I would say that they can also learn how to write articles or create articles for their audiences that are more um, um, I'm trying not to be patronizing, because it's not about patronizing, but about being a little bit more simple, in the sense that, when journalists are writing one and the same story all over again, they understand everything, and they tend to forget that the readers maybe just came into the story in the middle of it, and they still need some background. So you cannot just offer the upgrades and updates of the same story. You still have to do like a whole story, what is going on, So in children's news, we are really careful that we always have a story that has the beginning and end, and that it's simple enough so that even if you don't have really time, you can read it and understand it. But what is also important, we pay attention to the language. That doesn't mean that we are simplifying or patronizing, but we are really paying attention to the strong structure and strong sentences. Like the words have to have meaning, that it's strong. Don't use words that are just there, so that the sentence looks longer or something like that, we have a limit of 300 words, and we are really paying attention to every word that ends up in the published article.
What about financing the project? How do you fund Časoris?
Časoris is free. We don't actually receive any money for it, apart for a small grant from the Slovenian Minister of Culture that we apply to, like every other media in Slovenia is applying to. And that covers really just a fragment of the costs of the production. We are also asking our readers that if they like what they are seeing, that they should support us. We don't ask for donations, we call them contributions, because we are not a humanitarian organization. We really believe in educating people that although a news media is free, it is produced with expenses, journalists have to pay bills as well, like any other professional. So we are also including this segment in our workshops when we are discussing with our audiences what we are doing. But the majority of the finances comes from different grants that we apply to with different project proposals. And most of these project proposals are media literacy related, So basically, media literacy, we are thinking of it like Časoris in itself is a media literacy activity, because we are, if we define media literacy like access to the news, critical evaluation, analysis, critical thinking, reflection, creation of news, and then acting upon as informed citizens. Also, the newspaper Časoris is covering the first three elements, not just the workshop that we also do, or the tools that we develop, But yeah, mainly we apply for grants.
And what are your plans for the future? Do you maybe have any initiative to launch it in other languages?
Časoris is already publishing an article in English once a week, because when I started looking around Europe, what is similar in this area, I noticed that some countries do have, like Finland and Norway and Sweden and Denmark, they have newspapers for kids, but I don't speak those languages. So I couldn't figure out what they are doing, or Bulgaria, let's say. And the Google translation tool was not so powerful yet. So I was struggling with contacts. I couldn't even find contacts, who is the editor, and so on. So I decided early on that we will have an English section, so that people who look us up, see what we are doing, they can have an idea of what we are doing. And during one project, we were able to translate some articles into Serbian, Macedonian, and Albanian. But this is, everything is project related, so it depends on the funding. If we get some funding, we can do something. Otherwise, unfortunately, we cannot. not.
Sonja, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope I was able to answer all of your questions.
Yes, thank you. That's all for today. Thank you for listening to Fix It. If you liked what you hear, follow and subscribe to Fix It on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.